Datsun was the former export distribution brand name for the Nissan Automotive Company, commonly in use from 1958 until well into the 1980s, most likely due to a wish to disassociate with Nissan's involvement in the manufacture of armored vehicles on behalf of the Imperial Japanese Armed Military Forces as part of the war effort during the Second World War. While initially rather unsuccessful in the United States due to a failure to distinguish itself among many of the other automotive superpowers at the time, as well as the presence of a general attitude to only purchase and use American-made products, including automobiles, especially in lieu of Japanese ones, which had commonly been thought to be frugally and poorly made, and this belief is even illustrated in media examples such as in Back to the Future. It wasn't until the early 1970s that Japanese automobiles, and in particular manufacturers such as Datsun and Honda, became successful by any stretch of the imagination, due to the contemporary oil shock and subsequent all-around energy crisis and recession of 1973. Causing many American consumers to feel as though they simply had no choice but to purchase Japanese autos, given the similarities between the already existing Japanese K and microcar classes and the American termed Econobox, which was a term for a stripped-down, basic, efficient car being sold at a more affordable price point. Datsun's real success story was in the Bluebird Econobox sedan, which, while having existed since the mid-1950s, truly rose to prominence during the production of its 510 generation of the model from 1968 to 1973, due to the aforementioned energy crisis. However, as most amateur automotive buffs and self-styled car guys most already know, arguably the most memorable and classic Datsun model was in fact their sportier Fairlady model, particularly the Fairlady Z Coupe, introduced in 1969 as the 240Z. As the 60s gave way to the 70s, Datsun updated their flagship coupe to the 260Z in 1974, and eventually for the 1975 to 1978 produced 280Z engines. The Fairlady distinguished itself as an entirely independent model from the existing Datsuns and other American sports cars due to the simultaneous possession of superior performance and an economical fuel use. Where us video game enthusiasts are likely to care about any of this information is at the release of a tie-in arcade game to the Datsun 280Z, specifically dubbed the 280ZZAP AP, released in 1976, which was programmed and artistically designed by Jamie Faye Fenton, then known as Jay Fenton before transitioning, who would eventually program the better-remembered Gorf in 1981. This game was published by American distributor Midway Games as one of the earliest automobile racing games, in a very similar vein to Atari's Night Driver from the same year. As one may be able to observe, 280ZZAP is a grand departure from existing racing games of its time, such as Atari's 1974 Grand Track 10 and the Sprint series, both of which used simplistic top-down perspectives with abstract sprites to represent vehicles, whereas here we have a cleverly devised first-person perspective, with white bars representing reflective aluminum road borders or signs to simulate an illusion of movement upon the depressing of the ignition control pedal. Upon inserting your credit into the game promptly, almost startlingly, starts at no extra notice or interaction with the arrival of a flag-bearing official who closely resembles a lazily edited outlaw sprite from the Taito and Midway joint Western gunfight venture running across the viewable playfield, and an incessant reminder to ignite your engine and shred down the road on this dark night. Call it nitpicking if you will, but I personally find it rather odd that this title only offers 2-gear shifting, given that Datsun was producing 5-speed 280Zs as a standard selling configuration by this point, but I digress. While this game is definitely simple to learn, especially in comparison to Night Driver, which features much sharper turns and no preemptive curve warnings, it does slightly disappoint in its absence of additional courses, as in the former. Therefore, if one has mastered the existing track, there is virtually no replay value whatsoever. Additionally, I feel that this game may have been definitely benefited if it had a sparser placement of its bars, due to the rapid flashing from higher speeds being a probable trigger for headaches and epileptic fits, and I can personally attest to the former. Another complaint of mine concerns the bottom half of the screen in particular, with its frankly obnoxious and distracting messages to shift as the game wants you to. While this was definitely designed in good faith to assist players who weren't as skilled, it only ever seems to annoy me, and it detracts from my overall enjoyment of an otherwise near-perfect and underrated classic of the mid-70s. In conclusion, while this game may not appear to be the most exciting upon one's first inspection, 280ZZAP is definitely a solid near masterpiece of an early driving simulation, and I wholeheartedly recommend it to any video gamer willing to excuse its subtle and modest presentation, especially in comparison to the aforementioned Night Driver.